with me right now. It's our Medical Moment segment. We do it every other Monday at this time because, as you and I know, we talk a lot about our health care and the impact that it's having on us as a nation. A couple of things that are very, very pervasive inside the healthcare cost today. I talked to you about this before. Paul Von Ebers, the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield North Dakota, said 20% of the population is driving 80% of the cost. Couple of things that are top end on that would be obviously obesity and diabetes, but it's not just for adults anymore. It also is happening in kids as well. So with me this morning for our Medical Moment segment, Dr. Spencer Berg. If you want to learn more about what he can do to support you and having more vivaciousness, vitality, passion, all those kind of things that come with dropping some weight, you can learn more at FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. Again, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. Dr. Berg, first off, thanks for being in studio this morning. And let's start at the very basics. I think one of the things that many people may aren't even aware of is that there's a type 1 and type 2 diabetes. I think they know that, but what are the distinctions between the two?
Yeah, good morning, Chris. It's great to be with you again this morning. As it relates to type 1, type 2 diabetes, type 1, previously known as the juvenile onset, that's a situation where an individual is not able to produce insulin, and therefore those patients are always treated with insulin. Type 2 diabetes is a situation generally diagnosed 80% of type 2 diabetics, the cause of type 2 diabetes is obesity. And those individuals, many, if not all, actually have too much insulin. It's just that the body doesn't listen to it. And so they're actually what we call hyperinsulinemic. Too much insulin running around causing inflammation and other problems.
So basically what's happening is they're eating maybe too much sugar on their, because kind of walk people through the system. So I'm eating all this sugar. Doesn't my pancreas then say, okay, I need to produce insulin to help mitigate this blood sugar level? And then when that happens too much, I can no longer produce the insulin at that rate? Or what's taking place inside their bodies?
Exactly, metabolically.
Wow, exactly.
Yeah. Well,
good. All right.
Yeah, you're right on. What happens is that as we put on weight, most of that is stored as fat. And again, when we take in a high carbohydrate or a high sugar diet, even the hidden sugars, the kinds we find in some things not just out of the sugar bowl, what happens is the dirty little secret about that is that high sugar diet ends up being turned into fat. Once the body gets a hold of it, it uses a very small portion for immediate energy use, and the remainder of it is stored as fat. And that is why in our Western diet, where we eat a lot of the carbohydrates, especially the refined types, anything with pastries and cookies, etc., that type of thing, that just gets stored as fat. So it's not the high-fat diet that's really hurting us as much as it is the high refined sugars, because as we put on the fat, then the body quits listening to the insulin. It says, hey, we've got enough, and so the pancreas has to keep kicking out higher and higher amounts of insulin to make us clear the sugar from the blood, or otherwise we would become very sick, and that's what diabetes is all about. And so as those insulin levels come up, we have found are very damaging to the blood vessels, and in fact cause a lot of the problems. And so individuals, even prior to being diagnosed with diabetes, they have a lot of the problems that cause the blockages in the heart and the brain for heart attacks and strokes because of those high insulin levels.
Dr. Spencer Berg with us in studio for our Medical Moment segment. You can learn more at FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. Again, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. You know, one of my buddies is starting to begin early stages of diabetes. He said, he's starting to have numbness in his feet. Is that reversible?
Well, again, if it's truly diabetic neuropathy, which is something that comes on usually after an individual has had this a while, which brings up another very important point in that of the diabetics that are out there, and it's estimated now we're approaching near 30 million in the country, one-third of them are not diagnosed. They don't even know they have it. And so a lot of the problems that come with diabetes, especially the longer you have it, those individuals, by the time they're having symptoms that would be considered later on in onset, that's when they're being diagnosed. Now, had they been following those sugars and watching those screenings earlier on, a lot of that could have been preventable. Once it's there are medicines that we use to try to help it out. But no, as far as making it go away totally, that's very difficult.
16% of North Dakotans, this is back in even 2006, so it may even be higher now, but 16% of North Dakotans 65 or older were diabetic. That's, to me, a pretty staggering number, isn't it?
It is. It's higher, and the numbers are increasing just markedly, especially we're seeing it in the 40 to 65-year-old group. That's where we've seen a huge jump, as well as in our children, adolescents, and young adults.
Now, why is it becoming so much more prevalent today? Again, Dr. Spencer Berg in studio with us. We're talking about diabetes, very, very pervasive problem, probably one of the most, I would venture to guess, and Doc, correct me if I'm wrong here, but one of the most insidious killers out there today, I've heard now a person every 7 seconds is dying from diabetes. Why is it so much more prevalent today than it was, say, 40, 50 years ago?
Well, I'll take both those questions. The reason the prevalence is because of the increasing weight of our population. As I mentioned earlier, 80% of type 2 diabetes can be attributed directly to obesity.
But is that just from the stagnation that we're seeing, or is it from the fact that we've got so much more processed foods, or what?
Well, that's the second half of that is that, in fact, the availability of the very calorie-dense sugar products that are out there, along with the decrease in activity. Okay, they both play an important role, and therefore making sure we stay more physically active, that's important. However, as it relates to controlling our weight and maintaining healthy weight over time, and looking at obesity as a chronic disease, looking at this as something we need to control and manage, much like asthma, this is something that an individual does mainly by their intake choice. You can exercise will help, and you definitely need that to help maintain. However, you cannot make up for poor nutritional choices with activity. You still have to make sure you have good nutritional choices, and that's one of the mainstays.
So with your program at Fargo Medical Weight Loss, I'm assuming that's one of the things you cater to, because I know you customize a program for people. Is a lot of that based on nutrition that you work on with people?
Yes, as a physician, that's one of the things that is the benefit of this program, is that we look at the four main aspects that affect someone's difficulty with maintaining body weight, that being mainly their nutritional aspects, the psychologic aspects, the behavioral aspects, and the metabolic and biochemical aspects. Those all relate, and many of the programs that are out there will deal with one, maybe two, but none of them look at all four. And so by putting this together, and as being a physician, I'm able to look at not only the issue of and how we work with treating overweight and obesity, but we also look at the comorbid conditions, those things like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, stroke risk, sleep apnea, a lot of the things that arthritis, a lot of the things that come with this, we're able to help manage along with their doctor.
Again, Dr. Spencer Berry in studio with me. You can learn more at FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. I want to read something to you, Doc, and have you kind of talk a little bit about the cost impact of diabetes, and then also if you can get into sort of the opportunity cost, meaning that if a diabetic, and I don't know this obviously, but if there's sort of things that can happen at work because maybe they're not working as well as they could because of the diabetes or whatnot. So if there is an opportunity cost there, touch on that. But this is from the North Dakota Department of Health, the State Health Report, Economic Impact of Diabetes. Based on national estimates of the cost of diabetes, direct and indirect costs due to diabetes in North Dakota are estimated at $278 million per year, of which 2/3 are direct medical costs. A person with diabetes uses about 2.4 times as much in healthcare resources as a person without. I've said before, Doc, and Paul Von Ebers even said, yeah, Chris, you kind of got a point that we already have socialized medicine. I mean, 20% of the people are driving 80% of the costs. My premiums are going up. I haven't been to a doctor in I don't know how long, but yet my premiums continue to go up, and it drives me bonkers. So talk to me a little bit about the cost of diabetes on our healthcare system right now. And also, is there an opportunity cost that people might be missing out on because they're diabetic from a productivity standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. As it relates to diabetes and its impact on our healthcare system, it is second only to tobacco in terms of driving costs of healthcare. Overweight and obesity.
Okay,
in general, of which diabetes is a huge piece of that, because diabetes, when you develop it, is the number one cause of preventable blindness. Also the largest cause for kidney failure and ultimate need for dialysis, a lot of the very expensive things, as well as, to say nothing of the quality of life for the individual. And that's why investing in yourself and keeping yourself at a healthy weight is so important to you, so that you don't develop those things. But as it relates to employers, it's felt that the impact nationally can be, again, the ranges are anywhere from $150 billion to $500 billion in terms of lost revenue for productivity, for missed work, for those types of things, just in general to the system.
I want to get to some solutions here in a moment. I want to go at the number real quick before you get to these. 888-598-8464. Again, 888-598-8464. If you have any questions about it, Doc, you got a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chris, it's what's interesting. This is the first generation. Those children being born after the year 2000, first generation that is felt that will have a lower life expectancy than their parents based strictly on obesity alone. That's just on obesity alone. And therefore, controlling weight, keeping yourself at healthy weight is so important because, again, there are so many conditions that derive off of overweight and obesity, which is why we're on the cusp of treating this very aggressively, and that's one of the things we do at the medical weight loss specialist.
One of the things you said a while back, I thought that was so great, Doc, because I think this is not an easy conversation to have with people or with yourself about, you know what, I'm overweight, I got to do something, and you framed it in a way, I don't remember exactly what you said, but like, look, come on in and see us. You're not the bad guy in this situation like a lot of people might make you feel, but come on in and see us. We can sit down, construct a program that works for you, and make it easy. Am I kind of getting close to what you said?
Absolutely, Chris. One of the things that does a great disservice to overweight and obesity, similar to cigarettes, and that is that individuals, it tends to be put out there as a moral issue as opposed to a health issue. And I've told patients this for years, and that when we deal with overweight and obesity, this is not a moral issue. Okay, it's not that the good people are out there and they're slender and they don't smoke, and the bad people they smoke cigarettes, they may be obese. No, this is a health issue. This has nothing to do with that. You throw that out, you move forward. You take this, and just like you would treat asthma, just like you would treat high blood pressure, this is a health issue, a medical issue in which we need to face, each one of us, deal with, and work on maintaining healthy weight, because again, it's been estimated that those that are obese at age 40 will live 6 to 7 years less than those that are not. Okay, if you throw smoking in there with it, it's 13 to 14 years less. Okay, and somebody being overweight, it's 3 to 4 years less. So your life expectancy markedly decreases from what they call an all-cause mortality, whether that's blood vessel disease, strokes, heart attacks, whether there are certain cancers, variety of things. So there's so many health benefits. It's the best investment you can make in yourself is to work on maintaining a healthy body weight.
Dr. Spencer Berry here in studio. You can learn more at FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. So let's talk about the top maybe 2 or 3 things that a diabetic can do to help to start to reverse that, or someone that feels they're on the verge of that. You said, Chris, the biggest challenge is obviously they're ingesting too much sugar. Sugar's everywhere these days. So how do you really begin to mitigate that, and what would you suggest people need to eat to stay more healthy and start to eradicate this scenario for themselves?
Well, that's exactly one of the things we educate about at the clinic. When we see patients in that first visit, our first visit is about a 2.5-hour encounter in which we go through not only their history, their medical history, and a physical exam. We do an educational session for about an hour that talks about a lot of these very things, and it talks about appropriate nutrition and what is proper and what are good things, what are things to watch for. And again, the amount of sugar that we intake in this society is by far the largest driver of the overweight and obesity. But those sugars can come. It doesn't just have to be sugar out of the sugar bowl. We're talking about sugar that is found in everything from certain fruits, vegetables, breads, grains. I mean, they're all over. But some are healthier than others. There's no question. And it's not a matter of eliminating them. Okay, this is not a low carbohydrate or a low sugar. It's a controlled carbohydrate. That's what we need to have in our diet, our controlled carbohydrates and adequate protein, okay? And so that's one of the things that we look at. And then again, this concept of looking at weight as something we deal with for a lifetime. This is not a project. It's not what can we do by January 1st. This is something that we look at, and it's a process. And therefore you look at it that way. You control and manage it. It's not just a matter of looking at it as a project that I start now and ends here. This keeps going throughout.
Dr. Berry, thanks so much for your time. Again, if you want to learn more, set up a customized program for yourself, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. We've got a sister station here, Eagle 106.9. One of the DJs over there, Emily, is doing the program. She says, Chris, it's shocking how effective it is, number one, but also when people ask her about it, she says people cannot believe how affordable it is. So, again, go to the website. You can call and talk to Dr. Berry himself. He'll tell you more about that, FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. FargoMedicalWeightLoss.com. You know how passionate I am about this topic and this subject. It is one of the things in our society, in our country, that you and I actually can say, wait a second, I can be personally responsible for this. I can begin to lower some of these healthcare costs, lower some of these costs, so people have got more money to put out in the economy, because the premiums and whatnot, as we all know, are going up, and up, are going to continue to do so until you and I do something about it. So again,